Welcome to the Stories of School Leadership podcast, the podcast where we elevate the voices of and create connections between inspirational leaders from the UK and around the world. I'm Emma Lurie, and thank you for joining me as I share these journeys, inspirations, and stories of education, leadership, and life. In this episode, I'm joined by Matt Manfredi, who is a head teacher in Norway, and his experience to date spans all across the world in international leadership, from America to Asia and now in Europe. We talk about loads of different things, including autonomy, growing leaders, and Matt's very impressive reading accomplishments. And he shares some really fantastic inspirational reads that can help us out in school leadership. So let's get going. Hi, Matt. It's so great that you are willing to spend a little bit of time with me to share a bit of your journey. It would be really great if you could share where you're joining from in the world and just a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Emma. Appreciate the invite. My name is Matt Manfredi. I'm the head of school at Sandnes International School and IB World School located in Norway. We're not near Oslo. We're on the west coast, so the weather varies quite a bit. Fortunately, there's no snow on the ground right now, and I'm happy. I'm the director and head of school there.
Amazing. So fantastic. I want to hear all about teaching and education in Norway, but also I know that you have experience of leadership across the world. So we're going to dig into that a little bit later. But I really like asking people about their own school experience, just to find out a bit, how they experienced school, if they enjoyed it, didn't enjoy it. Often people dig into an idea about how it maybe led them to go into education in the future. So I would love to hear a bit about what your schooling was like.
Absolutely. I grew up on Long Island, New York. My parents sent me to Catholic school from first grade all the way through 12th grade. It was quite an experience going to Catholic school. I was not easily engaged, let's just say that. Probably at times not working to my potential. As I got older through high school, I had one focus. I wanted to be a professional hockey player. And that's why I wanted to go to college. In the back of my mind, I had always wanted to be a teacher, but my two older brothers became teachers. And I said, well, I don't want to do that anymore because they're doing it. So I was in sales and marketing for about 6 years, and I worked in the National Hockey League on Long Island for an organization called the New York Islanders. I was in corporate account executive. So I was going in front of CFOs and CEOs and business managers. So that sort of social dynamic I never had to worry about. And then I got tired of lying every day, being fed lines to try and get people to buy into what we were selling. So I went back to grad school at 28 years old. And it was a master's in teaching program that included a teaching practice, and social studies was my area. And I completed the teaching practice bit in a year, and then went for a job opportunity, and I was sitting in front of the principal, and whereas I should have been nervous, I wasn't, and I got the job right away, which was good. Started teaching 8th grade American history 5 times a day, 41-minute periods. Went back to my class at the end of the day and went, I can't do this for 30 years. So I ended up changing schools, going to a much smaller school where I was able to teach basically every subject our department had to offer. I'll talk later about self-efficacy, but I always wanted, I haven't taught that. Let me try that. Let me try that. Let me try that. I was the first one in my department to actually go abroad and studied at the University of Nottingham under a National Endowment for the Humanities scholarship from the States. Spent 6 weeks there studying the Industrial Revolution in Britain. Got very familiar with the country and Europe, and I got bit by the bug of, the world is a much larger place. So went back to New York, continued teaching. Actually took a break, went to flight school, became a pilot. I had
a segue.
I wanted to be a commercial pilot as well. So hockey play didn't work out. And then I went for the pilot route, and I ran out of money on the flight lessons. And I said, all right, I need a job. And the only thing I had left was the internship for my school administration credentials. So I went into the first school I was working at, and I was working under a wonderful assistant principal. And at the end of my internship, she left the school and went to another job, not because of me. And they said, "You're doing a great job. Why don't you take it?" And I said, "Okay." And my salary went up and I was happy. And then in 2010, made the decision to move abroad. I ended up in Thailand at a tier 1 international school for 8 years. I learned so much, didn't even know about the international baccalaureate before I left. It was a fast learning curve. I had a wonderful group of people around me who were quite experienced. And then I left there and went to China, became a head of department. I was in the city just across from Hong Kong for a couple of years. That's when COVID hit, the borders closed. I was outside the country. I continued teaching from Vietnam, and then got lucky, got a secondary principal position at an international school in Vienna, and then decided, obviously on my path to head of school, had a nice interview with Norway, and the director's goal was to transition out and to have somebody else come in. And I thought when I got here that I was going to be here for a year and then we'd talk about it. I was here for about 2 months and he said, "You're doing a great job." And I took over in December of 2022. So I've been in the position for a little over a year now. And our school it's an international school, but it's called a free skole here in Norway. So we're 85% funded by the Norwegian government, which allows the tuition costs to be very low, and it allows expats and Norwegian families to send their kids to us, and it's not breaking the bank, so to speak.
Well, that was a whistle-stop tour of what sounds like a very exciting life you have lived so far, Matt.
It's been interesting.
Did not expect the pilot bit to get dropped in there halfway along. That was exciting.
I haven't flown in a long time, but I wish I could get back to it. It's quite expensive. It's an expensive hobby.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah,
got
I
that.
bet.
I've got that and sailing. So I don't know what I was thinking.
Yeah, I mean, both very expensive, but great things to be able to do when you're retired, maybe in many,
Yeah,
many
maybe.
years' time. So, I guess initially when you were talking about your first, you were in marketing and you hated it and you felt like you were lying every day. How did it feel then when you got that first teaching job? Like, did you feel like a real shift in, I guess, how your job was affecting you?
Yes, because I felt that I had purpose, right? Every teacher, every school administrator, don't let them lie to you, wakes up in the morning, kicks your legs over the edge of bed and goes, "It's not Saturday." You get up and keep going. So the connection with the kids, being able to make a real difference, being able to possibly change the future of the actual world, getting into the International Baccalaureate in 2010, really focusing on the Sustainable Development Goals from the UN, and the proof that I made the right decision. Obviously, I feel great about what I'm doing, but the proof. So I've been in the game long enough to see the kids go through the International Baccalaureate program, graduate, go to university and beyond, and staying in touch with and seeing what my former students are doing now. I'm blown away completely. How many of them are still focusing on saving the world? How many of them are involved in cutting edge technology, AI? Had a student who was working on the Mars rover program because she had gone to the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and my mouth is just right. I'm gobsmacked when I see what these young people are turning into, right? And then I sort of go, I had a part in that, and it makes you feel good, right? It makes you feel good about what you're doing. Even the little ones today, I'm on playground duty and they're getting into arguments or whatever, and you're sorting it out. And thank you, Mr. Matt. You're welcome. And then they move on. So it pays rewards every day.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, you kind of briefly talked us through like your steps into leadership, but did that feel like quite a seamless transition? Did you always get into education and feel like actually I want to step up that ladder and get to those leadership positions? Was your eye on that from the start?
It's funny. No, like I originally thought I was going to be a teacher, and that was great, and I was enjoying every day of it, every minute of it. Well, obviously, you have your bad days and your good days, but um, I did it as a fallback. Like in New York, you have to get the certification, or you're not even considered. And I said, well, I might as well get it. And then if it's something I want to do, I'll do it. And I sort of just got picked and said, hey, you're doing a good job, so you can do it. Um, but once I got into it and I started leading people, it was a different form of purpose. I felt I had a greater impact on the system versus just being a teacher. I don't, say that lightly, but I feel like I had more of an impact. And then when I moved abroad, I was trying for leadership positions because I had experience, I had certification, and what kept blocking me was I kept being told, you've only worked in one international school. So the advice was to go to another one and work your way back up. So leaving Thailand to becoming head of school was a 5-year journey, a journey that I had already banked 4 years in New York. So that bit didn't come as easily as I would have thought it would have. Now, where I'm in the position that I've always shot for, um, it's very gratifying, right? Obviously, you have your day-to-day stuff and the stuff that's completely out of my control, but now I have to do, you know, damage control. That kind of stuff is just human relations. I try and take a stoic philosophy to the whole job, which is I can whatever I can control, and what I can't. But I can influence, right? And just building up someone's self-esteem and giving them the confidence to realize that they can do it, or they can fix the challenge or come up with solutions to the challenge. That I find is a lot more gratifying now, right? So I'm teaching teachers. I do have a lot of interactions with the students, but ultimately, my teaching of the students is done. Now I work with the teachers, so, and my leadership team.
And you're not alone. I think a lot of people did not plan to go into leadership, but they got thrown in or accidentally arrived somewhere and very quickly, yes, were,
Well,
I guess, headhunted, but
in New York, because it's most of the public schools are unionized and people are in it for the long haul and they want their pension. Many people who became leaders of schools, either assistant principals or principals, they were burnt out and they were tired of teaching. So then they wanted to step away from the classroom. One of the best things I saw when I got to Thailand was the assistant head of school, the principal, they were still teaching a class at least. This is at the high school level. And when I was in Vienna, I was teaching theory of knowledge. And I loved it. Like I still love teaching. It's not like I don't, I do it every day. But the opportunity to actually get a group of students and walk them through whatever you need to get them through, that's also gratifying for me.
And it's powerful as a leader to be able to be modeling what you're talking about. I guess it's always a benefit, isn't it? So I'm really fascinated to find out a bit more about leading and working in different countries, and I guess what you learned from the different places, positives, negatives, but and even just that comparison, I guess, between Asian countries and European and I guess America as well. Tell me a bit more about those different kind of styles and what you learned.
So just as there are diverse humans in the world, there are diverse schools and diverse countries. And depending on the school and depending on what their usually origin is. So, in China, the school was sponsored by the state, right? The government of China. They gave a lot of money to the school. So they had a really strong split within the administration. So you had the Chinese leader of the school, and then you had a Western leader of the school. And the Chinese leader of the school was always above the Western leader of the school. And when it came to qualifications and psychological safety and dealing with human beings, right? Most of our teachers were Western. You have the Chinese way and the Western, right? And they were always like different, and you would never expect them to be fully dovetailed together. But what I noticed, I think I noticed more of what not to do as a school leader than what I noticed to do. And that was, make sure you're taking care of your staff, make sure you're taking care of people. So if I take care of them, they take care of the students, and the students are happy and they're learning, and they, report back to parents. And that wasn't always the case. It was more about, we have to do this, we have to do that, we're doing this, we're doing that. There was not much transparency. There was not much stakeholder involvement. It was just, I don't want to say orders, but, this is what we're doing. And then people look at each other like, where did this come from? What's the justification? Tell me the why. And it was conflicting a lot of times, especially during COVID, right? When the online classes were the norm. Most of the Western teachers were outside the country because we had left for Chinese New Year. And when we were pulled back into the teaching bit, it was, you have to do this, you have to do that, it wasn't well thought out. It didn't have any, nobody asked for our opinions, nobody asked what's working, no reflection on the process. And it's not a comfortable place to be when that happens, right? When you're just being always told what needs to be done or what to do. I like the latitude of, tell me what needs to get done and I'll figure out a way to do it. And I'll be collaborative, and I'll talk to my department or my peers, and we'll figure out a solution. Like, have faith that people are, you're paying them to be professionals, tap into that professionalism. And that's the way I try and do it now. So I learned what not to do, and now I do the opposite, which is, give me what you got. I have a strategy called the 1-3-1, which is, I want to know if there's challenges in the building. Just let me know anything. However, if you're going to come to me and tell me what's wrong, I would like you to come with at least 3 solutions. And then together, we'll try and figure out what the best way forward is. So I like that better. It gives people agency over the situation, and not just the proverbial taking the monkey off their back and putting it on your back.
Yes. 1-3-1's great. I've heard a lot of people saying, bring solutions, be solution focused, but I like that little tagline. That's very useful. We will share that. And so, yeah, I think you're right. Lots of people learn in that way, don't they? They see leadership which doesn't, sit well with them, or they feel that, it's not having the impact that they would want to have as a leader, and therefore it helps you to mold your own style as you go into leadership, doesn't it? And so what about, I guess, the difference between Vienna and Thailand? Were there parallels? Were there things different there?
Yes.
And Norway now, I guess.
There's always likes, and there was some big and subtle differences. So the school in Thailand was non-for-profit, right? That's huge. It was well established. Our students came from all around the world. We did have a significant Thai population, or one parent's Thai, one parent's from the West. It was expensive. It's well funded. So development projects on campus or programs for kids. We had, I would never say unlimited resources, but we had very, very good resources. And the caveat to that is, you have to really identify what kind of school do you want to be. Are you heavily academic, heavily sports, heavily clubs? I felt, at least there was just always an emphasis on we can add more, we can add more, we can add more, we can add more. Being in this position and being in education for 24 years, you can't please everybody, and you can't have these knee-jerk reactions to parental pressure. You have to take it holistically. Is it good for the organism, right, to bring this in? Is it going to benefit the students? Is it going to benefit the school? Is it sustainable? And then shifting over to Vienna, it was a privately owned school, so a for-profit school. There was no board of directors, no parents on the board to try and influence or direct any programs or anything. The parents did have a parent committee, which we would meet with quite often. We'd take their ideas. It was also on the tail end of COVID, so our enrollment had dropped a bit. So, in 1 year, we were issued a 35% budget cut across the board with no explanations, just we can't afford this, we can't afford that, we can't afford this. And it made it very hard because it was a single decision from the top that just came down, and then we had to sort of conform and still make it the best school we can make it. And when profit is involved, it becomes, I don't know, not super comfortable with it.
Yeah, I mean, my experience here is not for profit in the UK, but the finances are tough. So certainly experiencing needing to make really tough decisions to attempt to make the budget balance is definitely something that lots of leaders here in the UK are experiencing, and we have been for years and years. So you shared a lot about what, kind of your experiences and the learnings from those. Who or what has kind of inspired you along the way? What are the things, either people that you've maybe worked with or seen, or reading? What are the things that give you ideas and keep you motivated?
Tons of reading, especially when I got into leadership. I just started to devour ideas. And I made a list in preparation to share some books that have helped me along the way. Especially, during COVID, when a lot of school administrators and school leaders were imploding because of all the pressure around them. And many times it was things that were out of their control, right? And as I mentioned before, you can't please everybody, but as long as you have a good source of information. So in Austria, we relied heavily upon the Austrian health authorities. And our population was very diverse. And some thought, vaccinations were great. Some thought masks were great. Some thought it was ridiculous. Why would we do that? And no matter what you're presenting as the way forward, you're going to get pushback. And the Stoic philosophy is expect it. Like you have to expect it and not be put off by it or caught off guard by it. You have to think about these things. If you don't, or if you do, you alleviate yourself a lot of suffering because it's coming, right? You know what to expect. In regard to what I've read, the people I follow, the people I look to for guidance. Obviously, when you're in a position of leadership, getting a network of people around you, because it's like a pyramid, and it's very lonely at the top. And sometimes you feel alone. And here in Norway, I've been very involved with the Norwegian International Baccalaureate Schools, the Nordic Network of International Schools. I joined something called the Academy of International School Heads. And sometimes within an hour, I can vent, I can get information, I can find a new resource. So surround yourself with people who are in similar positions and make that pact to support and collaborate. And when they're having their worst day, make sure they have your phone number and they can call you. This is very Simon Sinek. But it it's about the people, right? Because if you make the connection and you know that they have your back, you have their back, and you can talk about similar issues or problems, and it doesn't have to be all negative all the time, but sometimes you feel a little beat up and you need to at least have another person who can empathize and possibly help you through the situation. As far as readings, books that have helped me in this leadership journey, I think number one is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And it's also very much in line with Stoicism and how the Stoic philosophers, live their lives, which is, if it's the only thing you can control is your reaction. The only thing you can control is how you respond to things, negative, positive, whatever. I had probably numerous times in my career angry parents. They're angry at something, right? So you listen, you let them offload. You never go above this in your voice. And if their voices are raising, you excuse me, I don't understand why you're yelling at me, because I'm not yelling at you. Yelling at me is not going to get me to do whatever it is you want me to do. So you need to bring it down a little bit. And just understanding perspective, other people's perspective, right? They can have their opinions. I have my opinions. That's not the truth. It's just perspective. And the quicker I can gain their perspective, the quicker I can find a solution to the problem. But if things are happening around us that we have no control over, we came back from the winter holiday to a broken heater in our building. We had no heat in Norway in January, right? So we had to cancel school for, I think it was about a week, right? And we were waiting for the heater to be sent from Oslo. I have no control over the heater coming from Oslo. When it gets there, the technicians will get to work and we'll get back to school as quickly as possible. So I communicated this to everybody day by day, telling them an update, telling them what was going on. And it worked well for me. But that whole idea of the only thing you can control is your thoughts, everything else is, your response to that. I've read a new one recently that I heard from another podcast. It's called The Happiness Hypothesis by Jonathan Haidt, Haidt, and absolutely wonderful. Wonderful on personal development, wonderful on professional development. And, it's not your responsibility, Emma, to make me happy. It's not my responsibility to make you happy, or your partner, or whatever. It's my responsibility to make me happy. And I have to figure out what makes me happy, and then continue to do those things. Hidden Potential by Adam Grant. It's the science of achieving great things. Think Again by Adam Grant, also a great one. Dan Heath wrote Upstream when it comes to systems thinking. And, upstream, the analogy is a river. And if you plan upstream, you're not having to throw the life ring downstream. Very simplified. Obviously, I shouldn't be working for Amazon or anything reviewing books. Angela Duckworth's The Power of, it's called Grit, The Power of Passion and Perseverance. I read 2 books by the next author. He's a former Navy SEAL commander. His name is Jocko Willenick, and he does have a bend on the conservative side, like in the United States, but his books are primarily about his experiences as a Navy SEAL in combat situations. First one is Extreme Ownership, and the second one was Dichotomy of Leadership. And what I learned from that is, obviously many heads of school know this, like a kid falls down and breaks their foot on the playground, it comes back to me. Everything comes back to me. And having that ability to say, yes, it's me. I own this, right? And if I could have done something or something in the future to prevent it, we will put it in place. You don't risk health and safety, but it's any situation. And getting people to understand that as leaders is probably the hardest thing to get across, because I've had experience with leaders who were like, they were wearing Teflon and no matter what came at them, it would be redirected and fingers pointed, and that's his fault, or that should have been done like this, or there's no like, okay, I got this, let's fix it. It was like, the big slide off my suit type of mentality, and that's something I learned not to do in my leadership experience.
That's a good analogy. I like that one.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
ultimately, I'll always go back to like the tried and true meditations by Marcus Aurelius, who was a Roman emperor, but very stoic. He wrote every night on what happened during the day, and it's a great practice to just get out what's on your mind on paper, so that you're not thinking about it anymore. It's there when you wake up in the morning, but at least it clears your head. So I have a few more, but Simon Sinek, everything.
All of.
All of. When it comes to coaching teachers, The Teacher's Toolkit by Paul Guinness is an amazing book. It's practical, gives you, the book is about this thick, and it gives you things you could do every day, and the variety of instructional strategies in there are amazing. I think it should be a handbook for every school. No, I don't know Paul Guinness personally, nor am I getting an endorsement.
You're on commission. You need a little Amazon wish list book thing here. You could get
They're
lots
all in my
of
Amazon list because I've read them all. So yeah, I mean, if you're not, it goes back to the self-efficacy, right? Reading and improving your practice as a teacher, as a leader, it's necessary. And if you're ignoring it, you shouldn't.
Yeah. I think it's a really interesting idea. Actually, I chatted to somebody in one of the other episodes around getting into reading, professional development, personal development, all of those sorts of things. And I was not a big reader. I did not find a lot of space for larger reading until I decided to do a master's, which was its own big decision. But it really helped me to find the value in it. Finding the space to do it in your day is really important. I think leaders don't, a lot of leaders don't make sure they find that time. They don't see that as work. They kind of sit it outside. If they're doing that reading, it's got to be late in the evening or another time, whereas actually trying to build in some time into your working day, because it's development, isn't it? And it's so important.
And
Love that list. I'm going to write a whole list of Matt's top reads, because there's some great stuff, really great stuff in there.
Most of them are audiobooks.
Yes, I listen way more than
so when
I
I'm
read.
traveling, it's on my phone. I listen to the announcement on the airplane like I'm supposed to. KLM, if you're listening. And then I just put in my book and listen.
Do you often find, though, that you then want to buy the book in paper because you want to, I like to be able to flick back. So the amount of times I've listened to it, so I'm paying for my Audible subscription, but then I just want to buy them all as well, because especially the ones that have got maybe like diagrams or workbooks, and I just want to be able to flick back and see things. So my actual wish list of books is really, really long. I haven't bought them all yet, but
many of the audio recordings that I've been getting recently have PDFs connected, so you can you can open it up to page 6 and see the graph that they're referring to, and you can always take a screenshot and print it if you needed it. No, I used to collect books years ago. I was a history teacher, and I had so many books, and I had a flood in the basement, and all my books got destroyed.
Oh, no.
And at that point I said, why am I collecting books? To move 6 countries with books.
Oh yeah, true. That's a lot of airfare for some books.
It doesn't bode well for me in a moving company.
No, true, fair enough. Oh, so one thing we haven't talked about yet, and I'd love to for you to share with us before we run out of time, is about your current role and what you are loving about it, what lights you up, what motivates you, what's great about being a head in Norway in your school.
I reflect on this a lot, and I took over mid-year, so December of 2022, January 2023. And I had clear, specific goals that I had for the school and personally. So our enrollment was about 63. We're certified for 200. So my initial goal was to grow our enrollment. And we had in my first 6 months, with the help of my team, we had a 68% increase in enrollment. And I was overjoyed. I was doing all our social media posts. I was trying to gain a footprint. I would go to networking events and marketing events and talk to people. And they'd say, "Oh, what do you do?" And I said, "Well, I'm a head of school." And they said, "Oh, which one?" And I said, "Sandnes International School." And they go, "There's an international school in Sandnes?" Now I go back to my marketing roots, right? And so going to these things is quite easy for me. I love meeting people. I love finding it and building that network. And maybe I can't use your services now, but I can recommend somebody to use your services and all that stuff. So that stuff is, I feel very warm in that little bathtub of networking. But having clear, specific goals, as far as our staffing was concerned, we wanted highly qualified teachers on board. We've been very lucky. The Norwegian Directorate of Education has to approve your teaching credentials. And I'd say a good 95, 98% of our teachers are highly qualified and approved. That was a big goal. Finding a more permanent location for the building. If you can picture Sandnes being like it's called a communa, so like a town, I guess, would be the equivalent in the UK, or a council, maybe. Anyway, so Sandnes is like north, and we're about 13, 14 minutes south, right on the edge. And obviously we want to be more centrally located so we can pull from more areas. We arrange dedicated bus lines, transportation that runs on each side of Sandnes, brings them down to the school. The school's in an idyllic location. The building was built in the 70s, late 70s maybe. So it's not super contemporary. We've been upgrading. We have flat screen TVs now, Apple TV, large playground space outside, lots of nature. There's a river out back. It's quite beautiful, but in order for us to grow to that at least 200 mark, it would require a little bit more space, more building space, not necessarily more outdoor space. But Norway is they're sly in this. You can't have a building without outdoor space. They prescribe a certain amount of space per kid for the outside, right? So in downtown Sandnes, which is about 1.5 kilometers from my house, plenty of buildings, no outdoor space. You go outside of Sandnes, there's plenty of space and no buildings. So we're kind of in a catch-22 here, but we're always looking, and we're hoping to find a better location geographically. That's all.
It sounds like you've done a lot in a very short space of time.
Well, do you know, I don't know if you've ever been in this situation, but hopefully many school leaders have, where you think about something, you put a plan in action, you execute the plan, and then you go, damn, it worked. And I find myself saying that more often than not, like, damn, it worked. Oh my, it worked, right? And because I'm a new head of school, I'm like ecstatic on the inside. I'm like, it worked. What can we do next? Let's try it. Maybe it'll work too. So it's humbling as well. I don't mean, my Scottish partner is always keeping me in balance between confidence and humility. So yeah, a lot of the stuff we've planned together as a leadership team and executed have actually worked, and the students are thriving, and that's what it's all about.
Amazing. And is that when you were talking about your book list, one of the ones that really jumped out at me was the happiness hypothesis. And I think, I don't know what it's like in Norway, but sometimes we can get bogged down with all of the other things that are coming at us, and we can forget that happiness and joy and wanting to find that ourselves as leaders in our jobs, but for our communities and our families, is so important. And the fact that, that kind of came through as something is important to you, and I can hear it in your voice that the things that you're doing is exciting and you're loving it. So
I've always believed long-term happiness is attached to purpose, right? And being in the service of others. I look at myself as a servant leader. And, if I can do something, for instance, something small, like I have a certificate in school management and leadership from Harvard's Graduate School of Education, the best PD I've ever had in my life. That was a couple of years ago, I earned that. And they talk about this thing called low hanging fruit, right? So when you come into a school, what can be changed quickly and efficiently to make it better? The first thing was I bought snow shovels. Historically, we get a dumping of snow and teachers have to get from the parking lot to the front of the building, and there was no snow removal. So I would go in early and I'd shovel the snow, shovel a path, and every teacher walked by said thank you. And the highest paid snow shoveler probably in the world. But it's something little, and I don't mind doing it. The second thing was coffee, right? I got there, we had 18 staff using those single pod coffee things and this little machine. And I'm like, what's going on here? First of all, they're not good for the environment. It's not sustainable. So I had, our administrator go out and check it out. We got a subscription or whatever you're going to call it. And we got a nice coffee machine. You want a macchiato or a cappuccino? It's going to brighten up your day and put you in a better mood to teach kids. No big deal. Right. So that kind of stuff is easy. Can I get a new carpet for my classroom? This one's really dingy. Yes, you can. Like, yes, it's a carpet from IKEA. It's not a big deal.
Great. I'll be there for a macchiato. Brilliant. What time do you serve them? I'll just hop on a flight.
24/7. As long as the building's open, you can have a macchiato.
Amazing. Okay, so the last thing before I let you go, we were talking just before we started recording about kind of building leaders and building people, and we'd just love to hear a little bit more from you about how important that is in your job now, I guess, thinking about head of school, but you are building future leaders in that.
Correct. And I told you it starts with kids, teachers, middle managers, and the rest of the leadership team. Giving them the ability to see in themselves what I see in them is huge, right? And giving them the confidence. I know you can do this, and I'm here to support you do this. Giving them, they want to make change. You say, go for it. Write it down, think of a plan, talk to other people, come back to me. Let's do this. I don't want you to think, you can't possibly be a school leader and be a yes man and say yes to everything. That doesn't work. But allowing people to have agency within the system is huge. It's absolutely huge. And then what you see start to transpire is that the challenges are still there. They still face challenges, but they're figuring out solutions on their own. And we are there to support them. And we are there to coach them if they need help. But empowering them with agency, with voice in the whole system, it's huge in creating leaders.
Matt, thank you so much. So many fascinating insights, a lot of wisdom in this conversation in a short
I'm an
space
old
of
man,
time.
Emma. I'm an old man.
You are not old. You don't look old. You must be using great moisturizer.
Yeah.
And yeah, some really great ideas for other leaders for reading and research. So if people want to, are you keen to network? Can people find you on LinkedIn? Do you like connecting with other leaders?
Yes, yes, and yes. I have a LinkedIn
Anyone's in
profile.
Norway, we'll come over for a macchiato.
Anyone is welcome to come visit. I mean, it's not Shangri-La. It is, a small international baccalaureate school in Norway, but we're very proud of it. And we've had visitors come in, and we tour around the school. They talk to the kids, and we had the mayor of Sandnes a few weeks ago. And when they walk away, the feeling or the feedback I get is, your kids are so nice. Your teachers are so nice. Like, everybody's so nice. And, I'm not saying I take responsibility for that, but I tend to be very nice as well. So I'm hoping it filters throughout the system. And, you lead by example. There's no reason to lose your head. There's no reason to get outraged or yell, right? You keep it at a level that people feel respected and they feel valued is the idea. So the kids feel valued, they're happy. The teachers feel valued, they're happy. The school leaders feel valued, they're happy. And compliment, like if someone's deserving of a compliment, you give it to them. You don't hold that back ever.
Stoic leadership with Matt. I love it. I love it. There's a book in there. You have to write your own.
I will.
There we go.
From Marcus.
Oh, thank you so much for your time. It's been really fantastic. I really appreciate it.
I enjoyed it as well. Thank you, Emma, for the opportunity.
Thank you so much for listening to the Stories of School Leadership podcast. We'd love to know what inspired you in this episode, so do get in touch and tell us your thoughts. And please share this with friends and colleagues. If you have time, a review would mean so much. It really helps us to reach more people. If you'd like to connect with me to follow my journey or access some support, maybe supervision, coaching or early years consultancy, you can find me at Stories of School Leadership on Instagram. I'm Emma Lurie on LinkedIn, or my website is emmalurie.co.uk. I hope you have a great day whatever you're getting up to next, and I can't wait to share the next episode with you.